Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to do a quick kind of time-lapse tutorial of putting together the fruit face project. I'm also going to slow down at a couple points and show you some specific tools that we talked about in class, just in case you need to brush up. So first off, I made a new document. I made it 11 inches wide by 8.5 inches tall, just because I like doing that for printing purposes. And I made it 300 pixels per inch so that the resolution, it looks really nice and we're making artwork. Now, what I need to do is I need to import my images. And because we are putting facial features on a piece of fruit, I've collected a couple of images plus some extra stuff just in case. So I'm going to add each of these into my scene. I'm going to OK that by pressing Enter. I'm going to add in the next ones. And you can see how they're putting on different layers. If you need to, you can come down to the plus symbol and add a new layer, or if you're on a different system, look for the little folded piece of paper. So I'm going to add in my couple of different resources, make sure that they're nice and big so that I can change them a little bit later. But I don't need to see them, so I'm going to come to the layers right now, and I'm going to hide the ones that I'm not using. So right now, we're going to focus on the fruit. And the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to erase the background, to remove that out of the way. So to be able to change anything on a layer, we do need to make sure that it is not a smart object, that it's rasterized. So you can see at the bottom left, and I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see, the left of the pictures, these are all smart objects. You can see as I hover over it. That means that I can't edit it. Notice that if I try to create a marquee and then move it, it's not going to separate that section out. So what I need to do is I need to rasterize it. So come to the layer, right-click on the layer, and come down to Rasterize Layer. From Rasterize Layer, it'll lose that little marker, and then you'll be able to move things around and edit it. So now let's get to removing the background. So the tool that I want you to use, there are tons of different selection tools, but the tool that's going to have the most flexibility, the most accuracy, is actually going to be past, if we looked over here, past all the basic selection tools, and down near the bottom, it is the pen tool. It looks like a little like a old school fountain pen, as you can see. So we're going to click on that, and that creates shapes, and we'll look at that a little bit more later. But for right now, we're going to use it to make selections. So let's zoom in. I'm going to press Z for my hotkey for zoom. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to hide my layers right now because I don't really need to see that. I just need to know that I'm on the fruit layer. And we're going to come around and create a selection. So I'm going to come back to my pen tool, and we'll start creating a selection. So what you can do is you can click, and it'll lay down an anchor. And so I'm going to click around here, making sure that I am keeping as close to the edge as I possibly can. And I'm coming in just a little. You can see if I zoom in really close, I'm actually not even on the edge exactly, because I want to make sure that when I cut this out, there is no leftover background. And I call that having a halo of the original background. We don't need a halo. It's not important. And you can come really close, and you can see I'm moving things around. If you press this space bar, that'll give you the hand tool, and you can click and drag and move around without changing your first tool. So I'll come back to the pen, and I'll keep on adding. Now, you can do little clicks like this, trying to get the form, or you can do big clicks, and if I click and hold and drag it, you can see that it's creating like a curve. You want to be careful because we want to make this fit and not deal with things too strangely, but we can do big sections at a time and just curve it just a little bit to make it fit. Now be careful when you do this, because if you curve it too much in one direction, and then I need to make like a really dramatic next change turn, notice how when I try to click over here, that that it tries to follow this curvature. It's trying to follow the last movements. And we can edit that later, but an easy way to edit those, if you make a mistake, just press undo. And then when we're on the pen tool, if you hold down Option, or in a PC it's probably Alt, notice how it changes on the little marker. I'll zoom in the pen. So you can see there's my anchor, and if I hold down Option, it changes. So if I click on it, notice how one of those little anchor arms goes away. So I'm going to zoom out again. When I make my next marker, you can see how it doesn't change that curvature. I can do anything. So it's really easy to kind of play with the curves. I'm going to continue the rest out of this like dewdrop. I'm going to press Option, click on the last one, and then I'm going to create like a new curvature. So I probably wouldn't want to work that close to it because you don't need to be that accurate. I'm going to zoom out. You just need to make sure that you get pretty close to the edge. So let's go back to the pen tool, and I'm going to finish this out, and we're going to speed up the video just a little bit. All right, so I'm going to zoom back in here and slow the video down. When we get close to the end, I'm just going to come and I'm going to click on the very last portion, and you can see now it's made one whole thing. Now the very last thing that you need to do is after you've made this path, you need to turn it into a selection. So while we're inside the path, what you're going to do is you're going to right click, and you're going to come down to, and then you're going to come down to Make Selection. So I'll click Make Selection, and it often gives us a couple of little options in here. Something that's kind of nice to do is if you feather the radius, if you do like 1 pixel or 2 pixels, that'll make it a little bit softer, so it's not going to have such a sharp edge. But you can keep it the same. I like giving it just a 2 pixel feathering because that smooths out the edge so it doesn't look so drastic. And I'll press OK. And you can see, just like the lasso tool, it has created a marquee section. Now it's a selection. I can copy and paste this. I can cut it. I can do a lot of different things. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it, or I'm going to go to Edit, and then come down to Cut. And then I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to paste it, come to Edit, and then Paste. And there we go. We have our fruit all cut out from the background. I don't necessarily need the background. I can hide it if I want to keep it for something later, or I can come down to the bottom of the layers palette and click the trash. So then there we have our lemon cut out from our background. And you can see, if I zoom in, Good Credit will have none of the original background left. It's cut out nice and smooth near the edges, making sure that we have all the bumps and curves and things like that, so that it feels like a unique lemon. So now, I'm going to make that invisible, and I'm going to focus on my person. I want my person's face to be on the flat side of the lemon. So I'm going to flip it, and the way that you can change things is on your image. If you come up to the very top, under Edit, we get a lot of options on how we can change things. And what I want to do is I want to change this. Notice that I don't have any options for it. They're all whited out a little bit. And the reason is because I didn't take the time to tell it that we're working on this layer. I just clicked off of things. Right now it says we're working on the background, and that's locked. So got to make sure that I go back to my face layer. I'm going to make that smaller because I don't really want to see it right now. So I can have a little bit more space. I'll come up to Edit, and I'm going to come to Transform. Now, I can get the transforming box and change it a lot of different ways if I want to. But right now, what I want to do is at the very bottom, I want to flip this horizontally. And what that's going to do is it'll just flip it to the other side. So now that's really good. So now the fun part of getting all the pieces that I need. So I want this a little bit bigger, so I'm going to come back to Edit. I'm going to come to Transform. And it's going to give it this bounding box, and I'm going to make it larger so that it's easier for me to cut things out of. I can always zoom in, but making the image larger so I don't have to zoom in so much will actually make it a lot better, because then I can make it smaller later to fit where I want to. To be able to cut it, what we're going to do is we'll rasterize. And let's get the pen tool, and we'll shape this again. So what you need, what is required, is you need both eyes, the nose, and the mouth. Then I want you to add just a couple other extra details. So let's take care of that. I'm gonna get the eyes. Zoom in. I'm gonna get the pen tool. And let's leave a little bit of extra skin so that we can erase those later. But I want this wrinkle. So we're gonna do this. Right click, make selection, feather it just a little bit. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it. So I have a new layer for the eye. Let's rename this by double clicking onto the layer name. I'm going to put right eye. All right, so now I have all the pieces that I need. And if I turn off my face selection, I don't really need to delete it. I can if I want to, but now I have all my face sections on different layers. I'm going to turn on my fruit, and now what we need to do is we need to move these around and make them the sizes that work out best. So I'm going to use my move tool. I'm going to start getting these into the places that I want them. And once I click on the layer that I want, I can come to Edit and then Transform. I'm going to come to Free Transform, and I'm going to make things a little bit smaller, tilt stuff, except come to the eye. So now those all look really good. They're in the places that I want them. And what we're going to do now is just a little bit of cleaning up so that things work correct. If I zoom in and I kind of look around how sharp this edge is, it doesn't transition to the background, so that looks really weird. Same about over here. You can see that I left some of the background of the white, and that I have these like dramatic lashes that I want to keep. So what we need to do is we need to do a little bit of transitioning and cleaning up. So let's start off on this eye right here, the left eye. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change over to the eraser tool, which looks like a little eraser. If I click on it, it might be a couple other options, but keep it on the eraser tool. That'll work the best. You can come up to the properties of the eraser, and you can change what the brush looks like. Right now, under the brush styles, I have it set to this like really dramatic brush technique, but probably one that'll be the easiest for you is a soft round brush. You can see that the way that it looks is that it has like a soft edge to it, but it's more dense in the center. That's going to look really good because we're going to be able to erase a little bit softly at the edges, so it transitions really nicely. We can also change things like the size, the hardness, and and the spacing, but play around with those on your own. Those are in the brush properties, and at the top you can see that those are also here. I'm going to lower the opacity so that it doesn't erase a lot at a time. Like we'll keep it at, I don't know, we'll try out 20% and see if that works. And if I click on the brush, there's some options to it. The hardness is down to 0, which is good. I want it to be soft. The size, it's a little bit smaller. And you can change that by coming up to here and changing it. Or if you use the bracket keys on your keyboard, pressing the large bracket, the bracket to the right makes it larger. Pressing the small bracket makes it smaller. So those are quick tools to use for the brush. Let's zoom back out. I'm going to focus on my face. I'm on the left eye. And I'm going to make my eraser a little bit smaller. And I'm going to click and drag a little. And I'm doing a couple little clicks. And you can see that it's making it transition nice and smooth into the background. We're going to soften up that edge so that there are nice transitions. Do not have a hard transition unless it's like, you know, the end of an object and it becomes the background. Or like it's going to be the end of the eye. So I need to be very careful. Doing a little bit mixture of dragging, clicking and dragging, as well as a couple of individual clicks. And I'll make it nice and small so I can get in between these. But I can keep the eyelashes. But I want to remove the skin, which is a nasty statement. I'm going to speed up the video now, so you don't have to watch me work on it. But try to have a nice smooth transition so that it just naturally turns into the lemon. So you can see that it makes a really smooth transition around the edges. And that's what we want for each of these. We want to look and see where should there be a hard edge, like how the side of the nose is, and where should there be a soft edge, like where skin transitions into things. So have some fun, take your time, and make it look strange. So now we have our base design. We have our face on our fruit, and we have it creating some nice transitions. So let's make a couple more adjustments. I know that I don't want to move these around anymore, and I like where their position is. So let's put them all onto the same layer. If I come to the layers palette, and I'm going to zoom in so it's easier to see. If I right-click on a layer, there are a couple things I can do. And one of the things, if I scroll down, is merge layers downwards. So I'm going to merge the eyes together, and I'm going to keep on doing that. So I'll zoom out a little bit so you can see. I'm going to keep on merging down. Be careful about merging things, because once you merge things, you can't do anything about it. But I know I'm not going to change these anymore, so I think that works pretty good. So there we go. Face parts with my fruit parts. I'm not going to merge these two things yet because I may make some changes to it a little bit later. But for right now, this is pretty good. So let's add a couple more things. Let's change the color of the background so this feels a little bit more playful. So I'm going to click on the background, and by clicking the lock or the lock thing here, I can unlock it. Let's change this to a more playful color. So I'm going to use the paint bucket tool. And if you don't see the paint bucket tool, if you click on the paint bucket tool, it might be set to the gradient tool. So it'll look something like this, like a square that has color going from it. But let's have a paint bucket. And I'm going to come to my colors, and I'll click on that, and it'll bring up this window. And now I can choose some interesting colors. And so choose something that you think works with your background. For me, I like the combinations of violets and greens. I'm going to play around with that. We'll change some different colors. I'll try out some different lightness or darknesses. We're getting closer. That's pretty cool. I think I enjoy that. And then if you want to, you can click on the paint bucket tool and change it to the gradient tool. That'll have some options up at the top bar if you come and look at it. And you can have it radiate out from center, radiate out as a line or a star. I like from one direction to another. And right now it's set from going from something into nothing. And if I click on that, you can see that there are some options. I can have it go from one color to a different color. Right now I have it from purple to nothing. I can change how far it transitions, as well as I can change how much the opacity is. So if I want a little no color or some color. And on this side, I can change from all color to or only no color. It's up to me. So I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to change my foreground color into something else. I kind of like hot pink. And this will allow me to click and drag, and that'll create a gradient. And I want a gradient coming from like the top corner. And so I'm going to do a couple over to the right. So now I have an interesting background to play with. And so play around with this. Add some other things. At the bare minimum, you need a fruit, you need 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. You need to change the color of the background, and you need to add something else to it. I'm going to add some arms. And there we have it. We have a screaming line that has, I put some guns on it. Last thing that you want to make sure that you do is go through and make sure that everything looks good. If you have little sections like this that still has the halo of the background, clean that up. Get the eraser tool, go through and erase out whatever is not necessary. And make sure that you're on the right layer so it does something. And so I'm going to erase that out so that doesn't show. And maybe what I needed to do is not have such a big eraser and have it have a sharper edge. There we go. Instead of a nice soft edge, because we don't want it to transition. I'm going to look around, make sure that everything is cropped well, that it all matches up to where I want it to be. I think that's good. I like having this like open spot at the bottom. Looks like I need to clean up this part. Again, make sure that you're on the right layer. I forgot, I was on the wrong layer, so now I'm on the right one. And I can start erasing. You don't want anything to break the illusion from what we have. You just want it to look like what you want it to look like. Up the opacity a bit. There we go. So now it erases nice and smoothly, quickly. Beautiful, beautiful. There we go. Make sure that you save your work and that you export it as a JPEG and turn it in.